Do you want to speak French with a sophisticated, rich language? If you're an intermediate learner and if you're a bit insecure about your French, you'll see that speaking like this is actually a lot easier than you think. The following exercise will instantly upgrade your French and help you talk about literally anything you want, like an expert, in less than 10 minutes.
Welcome to Quirky French Podcast, the podcast that helps you speak more confidently, feel more focused, and be more in control of your French learning journey. Prêt? C'est parti!
Salut, bonjour, and welcome to episode 39 of Quirky French Podcast, the podcast that will help you reach fluency and show your personality in French. I'm your coach Naima from quirkyfrench.com, and today I want to help you upgrade your French. So if you're trying to develop speaking fluency, as in speaking relatively smoothly and fast, you will have heard me talk about techniques such as simplifying your French. On this podcast, I mentioned this a lot. But today, I want to help you focus on language complexity. In other words, this exercise is not designed to help you speak easily and fast, not so much, but it will help you express your ideas with more depth, using stronger, richer vocabulary, more complex sentence structures, and so on. In other words, you're going to summon the expert in you. And there's so many benefits to doing this exercise, okay? So we're going to do a little interactive exercise together, and you'll see what you're able to come up with in less than 10 minutes. Okay, let's go. Okay, so this exercise is called the 5 levels game. Okay, the idea is to challenge your ability to explain anything, to talk about anything with 5 different levels of difficulty. Okay, so I got this idea from a YouTube channel called Wired, and they've got a nice series of videos called The 5 Levels. And the concept is, and I quote, "Can everything be explained to everyone in terms they can understand? In 5 levels, an expert scientist explains a high-level subject in 5 different layers of complexity. First to a child, then a teenager, then an undergrad majoring in the same subject, a grad student, and finally a colleague." So basically, you're going to do the same. I'm going to ask you a question, and you're going to build up the complexity of your answer progressively. Okay, so imagine you're talking to a specific person, really picture a person that you actually know, and that's going to help you adapt your answer to your audience, okay? So that means the first time you answer the question, picture an 8-year-old child, then a teenager that you might know, and so on, okay? And at the end of the exercise, we'll talk about what happened language-wise. We'll talk about how this can help you build up your language skills as well as your confidence. So really, to get the full benefits of this exercise, make sure that you're actually speaking out loud, okay? Because as we know, what goes on in your head and what you picture in your head always sounds so much nicer than when you're actually saying the sentence for real, okay? So take the time to do it and make sure that you pause before you resume the episode. Okay, so without further ado, let's start the interactive exercise. Okay, so the question is simple. Qu'est-ce que tu fais dans la vie? What do you do for a living? Okay, so starting with level 1. Imagine that I'm an 8-year-old. Okay, pause the episode now and provide your answer. Okay, super, bravo. Now moving on to level 2. Picture a teenager and provide an answer, please. Très bien, super. Now we're going to up the difficulty a little bit. Again, just make sure that you add more depth to your answer. So make sure that the answer is the same every single time in terms of what you're talking about, but just make sure that you choose words that are a bit more sophisticated. Try and use grammar and sentence structures that are a little bit more complex. Okay, moving on to level 3, an undergrad student. Tell me what you do for a living. Qu'est-ce que tu fais dans la vie? Excellent, merci beaucoup. Et maintenant, level 4. Qu'est-ce que tu fais dans la vie? Again, we're going to upgrade. Make sure that you're adding nice little fancy words, that you're phrasing your sentence as best as you can now. One more level, level 5. Qu'est-ce que tu fais dans la vie? Ouais, super. Très bien. Well done. So I hope you found this exercise interesting to do, and you will probably have noticed that some levels are actually easier than others to do. It's not always the same for everyone. Some learners will find that they feel comfortable with really simple answers like level 1 and level 2 answers. Others will find their sweet spot around a level 3. But for most of you, especially if you're trying to work on building up your sentence structures and vocabulary, then you will normally find that level 4 and 5 answers are actually a real challenge, okay? So really this exercise should help you, because a lot of learners assume that they should be speaking at a really high level. But the truth is, complexity is something that you can build up, okay? You can train your complexity muscle, just like you can train your fluency. You can do a lot of activities to build up your fluency. You can also do activities to build up the complexity of your language with an exercise like this one. And if it's the first time you've done this, it might feel really awkward. It might feel really uncomfortable. Perhaps you notice that your French wasn't actually so great. You might have made a few mistakes. You may have gotten stuck. But here's the thing, despite the mistakes you made, do you think you could have produced a level 5 answer, on the spot? Usually, you'll find that even if you're not completely satisfied with your answer, you still produced an answer that's a lot more complex and very rich in comparison to coming up with a level 5 answer, from the get-go. All this to say that you can practice talking about literally anything if you tackle it that way. You can really practice that skill of building up the complexity of your language. And it's a really powerful learning habit that you can practice in general, but it's especially handy when you know that you're going to need to talk about certain topics with expertise, for example, if you need to prepare for an interview or an exam, okay? And I really hope that this episode is showing you that there's no such thing as being good at French, okay? Don't let yourself get intimidated by learners who seem to have a higher level than you, or who seem to know how to express themselves, eloquently. Because the truth is, you can practice speaking and you can become an expert as well, okay? So just keep going, and if you enjoy this exercise, just incorporate this into your study routine. Choose any topic that you like and apply the same technique. For example, have a look at a picture and describe it using 5 levels of difficulty, of complexity. That's one way to do it. Or choose a word and define it 5 times with 5 levels of complexity. Okay? And if your goal is to elevate your French, you should definitely incorporate this exercise into your learning routine. The more often you do this, the easier it will be, and you'll be able to push your French even further each time. So that's it. That's all I have for you today. I hope you find this episode helpful. Let me know how that went for you, and I will catch up with you next week for another episode of Quirky French Podcast. And in the meantime, as always, comme d'habitude, keep learning, keep growing, and keep it quirky. I'll speak to you soon. Bye bye. Salut et à la semaine prochaine.